I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing to help with capturing data on farm and getting it into SIL in a more streamlined fashion. However, my goal is not to talk for the whole time. My goal is to leave some time for you to ask some questions. I'm sure you'll have plenty. Having said that, my colleague Kim Saunders is at the back. She's going to do a demo tomorrow out at Invermay. And so if you're sort of asking questions about, well, Andrew, you've got some pictures on the screen, but how does it actually work when we use it? You'll be able to see that with Kim tomorrow. Yeah. So quick rundown, who are we? So Rezare Systems are New Zealand's agricultural software specialists. We've got a team of 30 people who are mostly mathematical modelers and software developers and what we call business analysts. And business analysts are the people who get alongside our users and try and understand what they actually need. We've been developing software for many years. In my case, about 27 years. I started off in ag research, did 16 years there, and then we set up Rezare Systems. And there's a list of some of our customers on the screen there, but there's a whole bunch of other organisations around New Zealand, household names to those in the farming community who we develop software for. So that's our pedigree. We've been looking after SIL for the past, nearly 15 years, but mostly in a maintenance mode in that time, so just keeping it running basically. So what's the context for recording or capturing information? And I guess over time, particularly over the last X number of years, many of you have used different ways of recording data and capturing data in the field. And the classic would be your yellow notebook. And you know, they have all the advantages of, by and large, they're reasonably waterproof. If it's sort of raining lightly and you've got a pencil or something that's going to keep working in the rain, you can keep recording. And if you drop it in a puddle, particularly if you've written in pencil, well, you can still retrieve something from it. And it doesn't run out of battery power. So all good reasons for using that technology. But there are challenges as well. And for those of you who are trying to do a great job with your performance recording, accuracy is a key thing. You know, all this effort around BVs and the questions that we had this morning around, you know, exactly where should be that curve, you know, when do we start discounting, all of those sorts of things, they could be moot if our recording of parentage is wrong because we've got some IDs wrong, or if we've incorrectly ascribed lambs to ewes. And that happens. And you guys are probably more accurate than the average person in the population, but companies who've done studies have shown that people who record and write out data, typically there's an error rate of between 4 and 8%, which is quite substantial. So if you're serious about improving your performance recording, you are going to be looking for other ways you can improve that. Modern technology, including your smartphone, but including also the weigh scales and other sorts of things that you've seen, EID, will help. It's not a panacea, but it will help. One other thing, and I'm aware that we've got quite a mixed audience, and some of you are already using this stuff, and others of you have used paper for many years and you're very comfortable with it. And I've just put on the bottom there, this is a skill that can be learned. It's very easy to say, it's technology, I'll never get the hang of that, and I completely understand that, but as I've worked with farmers around New Zealand and Australia and overseas, my observation is age and experience and those sorts of things are actually no real barrier. It comes down to motivation and mindset. And if your mindset is, I'm a continuous learner, this is a skill that can be learned, you will conquer it. Yeah? You might use different tricks than the new generation who grow up using this sort of stuff, but you will get there. I'm not going to spend much time on that diagram. Suffice to say that we've designed the new look SIL database, most of which you will never see because it's all back-end, backroom stuff. We've designed it so that we can plug in different systems for getting data into it. And I'll talk more about that later, but that means that if carcass data is coming from meat processors, it doesn't have to be retyped to go in. If data is coming in from your on-farm devices, it can come straight in, and it doesn't matter who's providing the software for those on-farm devices. We've got one lot, but there are other software tools around which will work just as effectively. So from a data collection perspective, the tool I'm going to tell you about today is called Pure Farming. It's been developed over a number of years by Rezare Systems, and recently we've put it into a joint venture with Gallagher Group that's called Apps on Farm. And that joint venture itself has a sort of informal joint venture with Beef and Lamb Genetics to effectively get the software and make it customised and working effectively with SIL. So key thing is this software is both web-based, so you can use it from a web browser on your desktop, laptop, tablet or phone, and it's also mobile-based, so it works on one of these or a tablet, and it talks to your weigh scales. If you've got EID, it talks to your EID reader, and it synchronises that data up into the SIL database from where it can be approved and used in SIL. Okay. Sorts of things that you can do with it, and we've tried to keep this as simple as possible. You can record lambing with it. You can find animals when you're out in the yards or out in the field by reading their ID tag or by typing in their visual tag, and you can view data about those animals while you're out in the field. You can make up draft lists based on a whole range of different criteria. For cattle farmers, it's got NATE, and deer farmers, it's got NATE integration, and it will also integrate with your meat processor so that you can get carcass data back into that system. And I'll walk you through just a few of those little bits along the way. On-farm hardware, there's a lot of it. We support most of the hardware that is out there. You can see that there are devices by Gallagher, TrueTest, Tipari and Iconics. And most of those, particularly the newer versions, will talk to on-farm software and back to the cloud, back to SIL. Okay? So if you've got a particularly old piece of hardware, it may not talk directly, and there are things that you can do. You can upgrade, of course, and the hardware manufacturers will be more than happy to assist you with that. But there are other things you can get, wireless dongles, or you can use your PC-based software to download the data over a cable and then push it into the system. So all of those things are possible. Just a quick show of hands, who uses EID or has played with EID apart from sort of in this context with our tags here? Yeah, good number of you. Yeah, and again, I highly recommend using EID if you're serious about accuracy. I know, because I've worked with it for a number of years, there are challenges sometimes in your initial setups in the yards. There are challenges with getting tags in reliably so that they read well. That's another skill that can be learnt. But once you get it, it does work well. I've stuck a little note down the bottom of the screen. A lot of the hardware that we buy on farm and use on farm only works at the moment if you're trying to talk to it from your smartphone with an Android device. And many of you will have iPhones. And that's a limitation of the hardware and some decisions that Apple made about what they would support. Your software vendors can't do much about that. A few options I've seen is some farming groups have bought a cheap Android device that they use on farm and know that that doesn't replace their smartphone that they use for their own purposes. Or you can specifically get some of the newer devices, some of the latest TrueTest and Gallagher gear that will talk with Wi-Fi, and that does talk to your iPhone. So just ask about those sorts of things if you're looking at hardware. This is the lambing screen, and we're just about at that time, and in fact we've got a few people lined up over the next few weeks to start beta testing the latest versions of this software for lambing. And if you'd like to join that group, we can only take a limited number of beta testers this season. But if you'd like to join that group, come and get my card at the end of the session, or talk to my colleague Kim back there with the blue and black jacket, and she will take your name as well. Recording lambing, you would open a lambing session. If you were using EID, you would scan the dam tag. If not, or particularly if she's run away a few metres, you might type in her visual tag and look her up and make sure you've got her. If she's already recorded as having lambed, you will see that. Yeah, so that's your first check to say, because again, talking to some of you bureaus, that's the classic problem, isn't it? Of course, we can't solve the problem that, no, this is the correct tag, the one I recorded last week is the incorrect one and I don't know who she was. Can't solve that for you. EID will certainly help with that if you can read it. Enter the number of progeny born, number dead, and a fate if you want, and you swipe over to the progeny. And on the progeny screen, you can scan the EID, perhaps as you're putting it in the ear. You can enter the tag, choose the sex, and if you want, enter a fate. And that's it. Press done, and that data is saved. When you finish the session, that data goes back. Whenever you get back to some connectivity, that data goes back and into the database. Now, that doesn't mean it's immediately used by SIL to calculate VVs and those sorts of things. You actually need a review step in between, and we will have that as well. Viewing details. If you are looking at an animal in the yards, maybe you've just weighed her, maybe you've seen her out on the farm and you've looked up her tag, you can see some information. And again, you can swipe across, there's a bunch of information there about that animal, but you can swipe across to see her history, to see her breeding values. And finally, you can create draft lists, which at the moment we do on the web-based version, and they get downloaded to our devices, and you can select on a whole bunch of different criteria and combine criteria to say, I'd like to get a list of animals, those IDs, by, and you choose the criteria you want, and that list is created. And you can do two things with that. You can keep that list in Pure Farming to act as a comparison group, and you can plot how that group performs against other groups of animals over time. Or you can download that draft list and use it to actually select animals while you're out in the yards.